Hey, baby.
Hello.
We're back.
We meet again.
Okay, what do we got?
What advice would you give your younger self about love and relationships?
How young? Like younger self, like baby?
No. Not comprehensive. You can't comprehend relationships then.
Okay. So
like
what age
when
are
you're
we
a
talking about
teenager.
here? Teenage self.
Yeah, or
Okay.
a tween.
Okay.
When like
What is a
love
tween?
is like,
Teenage self.
yeah, you go first.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
I haven't.
I'm very curious.
For me, as a teenager, I was such a capital F boy. Yeah, I was. I think most teenage boys are capital F boys, and I had no regard for anybody but myself. I felt deeply, right? Like so, like I was the type of kid that would like write poetry or long letters or like totally take a romantic gesture to the, like.
Love letters is not the type of stuff that like normal capital F boys do.
I think they do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they do. And then I would like take romantic gestures to a very far degree. So I was very thoughtful about all those things, but still, I was still very selfish. And I think that my advice to my younger self would be, and I want to make a distinguishing mark here between the difference. I cared deeply, like I felt deeply. I just wasn't super aware of how my actions long term might affect somebody. I looked at everything in a very truncated window. It was the weekend, or I was a sophomore in high school.
You're taking the younger self part really seriously.
I know. And through that, I didn't think longer about like what this would mean to somebody. Mm-hmm. It's just like you can't really see long term when you're that young. So you don't know how all of these things play out over time.
Yeah.
So I think my big piece of advice to my younger self would have been to let things happen more naturally instead of trying to force them. To be as careful with someone else's heart as I was with my own. And then when you're put into situations where you're, I dated a lot of older girls. So when you're put into situations where you might be punching above your weight, or outsiders might look in and you think it's cool to some degree, measure whether or not your heart is making a decision or your ego and your brain are making a decision. Because I had some really rewarding relationships where I followed my heart, and then I had some terrible experiences where I was letting my ego or what I thought was kind of cool dictate my romantic relationships. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does.
And ultimately, you realize that like dating someone like just slightly younger than you was perfect.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So does that?
Yeah, be more cautious with, like, be more considerate of the other person's heart just as you are of your own, and recognize that you do have the potential to have an impact on somebody else's life and their experience with relationships, and also to like focus on having a good balance of like your heart versus your ego.
Yeah.
And like, oh, what's a cool factor of a relationship versus like how you're actually feeling.
Yeah, I think so.
That's great. It's interesting hearing that, because I feel like I automatically went to a place when I heard that question about like this fairy tale love that I think maybe more so girls think of when they're younger and they think of love. And it's kind of like, I think that women kind of like have this, or girls, because you're young, you kind of have this like set expectation for what it's like to be in a relationship and find love and find somebody that you want to be with for the rest of your life. And I think my advice to myself would be well, actually there's a few things. I'll do it in lists because I like lists. Okay. One would be that the idea, like societal construct of like when you go from like dating someone to this like vision of what your future self looks like and like with a family and all of that stuff, not to like take that so seriously and to be much more open to this idea that there's so many different ways to get to your future self and to embrace the unknown of that, like embrace the unknown of all the different paths that you can take, and that can be really beautiful because then you can learn so much more about what you like and what you don't like without this sort of like expectation that you might have in the back of your mind because that's what like society has made you feel like you are supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Another thing would be that at the same time you should still like, it's not bad to be in different relationships, and in fact like I think it helps you learn about what you do and don't like, and that there is somebody that can make you feel the kind of way that this fairy tale love story makes you think you should feel. Mm-hmm. And that even though once you kind of like, you know, the whole honeymoon phase, I think that is kind of a real thing, but once you pass that, you still have, like, you can still feel that on a more consistent basis. And like, if somebody's really not, you know, doing it for you and you're the way that you want to feel in a relationship, then that's okay, and you don't have to kind of like stick with that person just to like fulfill this thing. That you can find that like stuff that makes you feel like, oh my gosh, what's happening kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And then there was a third thing that I had in my mind.
I think the
does that make sense? I
Yeah.
feel like I just rambled a little bit.
Yeah, I think the fairy tale stuff, it's really difficult because we are a bit like preconditioned based on Disney movies and what we see in media.
Oh, I have it.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
Great, go.
Okay. The other thing is, I think so many times people say like, oh, you have to love yourself before you can love someone else. And like, I agree, and that's true. But I think that more than like loving yourself, you need to understand yourself. And you need to like do introspective work to understand why you think the way that you do, why you feel the way that you feel when certain things arise, especially like as you get older and like you maybe like some like kind of comes up after like being in past relationships that might like trigger you, you know? You need to recognize those moments so you can figure out how to better respond so that you can like go through the work that's required in like a real relationship that you want to last. That's, I think, a huge one.
Yeah, because you're not always going to love yourself.
Yeah, I think, well, you have a relationship with yourself too. But like,
okay, so
I
I'm
actually think
go
you always,
one more level here because I want to get like really in the weeds with you on this.
like really deep.
Yeah. Your 17-year-old self,
Yeah.
like junior year of high school. What would you say to that, Erin? Like more specifically.
I was just exiting my worm years then.
Your what years?
Worm years?
Worm.
Yeah, when I was
years.
like a worm.
You were wormy looking.
Yeah, I was
Got
wormy.
it. Understood. And what would you tell that 17-year-old about love and relationships?
I think, I don't think I tried to be someone else ever, but I think I oftentimes was like in tune with trying to maybe come across a certain way when it came to potential relationships or guys, you know? And I think I would tell her kind of like what you said in the beginning, like to really embrace the things that are happening in your life and not get so like worked up about like whether or not something, I don't know, should go a certain way, or I should have this amount of experience by now, or I should be, you know, I should have a boyfriend, or I should look a certain way in order to like, you know, achieve these expectations of love, you know?
Yeah.
And I think to like embrace that time frame, because it helps like, and when I say embrace it, I think like view it as like a cool thing. Like it's kind of cool that this is my experience in life. And I think the more people embrace their own current experience in their life and view it as cool, they'll feel a level of confidence. And I think so much of when you're that age, there's like so much judgment from like where you should be, how other people are. And I think if you can embrace where you're at and view it as cool in your mind, there will be like a level of confidence about you that probably would attract another, you know, potential mate.
Yes.
But also
Suitor. Yes.
a suitor. But that wouldn't be the goal. It would be more so to like help that build
Know thyself.
you are. Yeah, who you are in a way.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, I think if I were to do the same exercise, I think.
What if you were saying to somebody like when you think about being in our relationship, is there something that our relationship has taught you about what it's like to be in love and in a true partnership that you would want to tell like someone who's younger, even if it's not like your own younger self?
I think that the capital F boy behavior it takes a long time to unwire that behavior. So the longer you pursue capital F boy status, the harder it is to reverse that. So I think that'd be my big point of feedback, is like, stop being a capital F boy today, because you'll get to a place where you're a lot happier if you do.
But do you feel like you have to ever go through that capital F boy phase to appreciate
No.
where you are now?
No.
No.
I think the whole capital F boy thing is a big front that people put on to try to hide their own feelings and protect their feelings so they're not ever vulnerable enough to get hurt. And they do the hurting as opposed to being hurt. And I think that behavior is a defense mechanism that then carries on in the years after you should exit that phase, and you should never be in it. And it just takes longer to exit that phase. So I think that's my big point of like advice for my 17-year-old self about love and relationships is don't be a capital F boy.
Yeah, I agree. Because like I definitely went through like a capital F girl phase. Like it was probably a little shorter than yours. Maybe I was a little older than you.
Probably like a decade shorter, yeah.
And I agree. It's kind of like a false front. It's a false confidence.
Totally.
It's very much surrounded by ego.
Yeah.
So getting to a place of like true confidence, I think that's possible. But I agree, you gotta get out of that phase first.
I agree. Thanks, Brandy.
Thanks, Brittany.